In some of your presentations, you talk about the box theory. Can you talk about the box theory? What is it?
Okay, I need you to take your imagination and try to make this as vivid as possible. Imagine a box, and on each one of those corners represents something that's training our kids to become something they're not. On one corner you have drugs, on one corner you have gangs, another corner you have murders, violence, and another corner you have that poverty, and you're stuck in the middle of that box as a kid. So can you imagine everything from all corners coming in as a kid when you're an infant and continues to build into you from first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, and on. And all these manipulating factors is designing you and programming you to accept this mentality that does not belong to you. As I told the kids, if I took all you guys and took you out of this box and placed you in a different box, let's just say a small village in Africa, you wouldn't walk, talk, act, or do any of the things you do now. But our kids have adopted this characteristic and have adopted this attitude like this is how we're supposed to act, and this is our identity, this is our nature. But in reality, it's not. It's how you've been trained. You're being trained to become something you're not. And I know no one out there like being a puppet or a slave for any system out there. And until our kids realize that they're their own individual standard, which I'll get into a little later, they'll continue to try to fit in this box that does not belong to them.
You talk about poverty. One of your presentations goes over poverty as a mentality, low income as a reality. What do you mean by that?
Prime example, poverty is what we're being trained to accept. Poverty is a mentality in which, okay, we've accept what's going to happen to us. We're born into this society, we're born into this structure, we're born into this system, and we have this identity. That's the poverty mentality. Being broke represents a state of not having money in your pocket. You can change that by the tenacity and ambition that you have and the drive that you have within yourself to become something more. But if you are consumed with that poverty state of mind, you can't get past the concept of believing in yourself that you can make it past those obstacles that you face. We all fall into this system of we are allowing our circumstances to become our realities, and it's handicapping our kids, and it's coupled by being handicapped and fostered by some of the teachers that our kids face because they're feeling sorry for our kids. And our kids don't need you to feel sorry for them. What they need you to do is empathize and create new and better solutions to the problem that exists in our educational system right now, so that they can become something better.
You have a theory called urban psychological cannibalism. What is that?
Urban psychological cannibalism is something that I created and thought of in a sense of how I visualize and took an understanding of how our kids are being trained, reverting back into this box theory in relation to it. Urban cannibalism is, imagine the music, the image that is portrayed of African Americans, Latinos, and urban kids across this country, and imagine that being programmed into our kids' head. And all this information is being programmed in their head. And what I mean by the psychological cannibalism is that our kids' psychological mentality is being programmed by the music that they listen to and being fostered by the lifestyle that they live in their community. So it's feeding off one another. And so you're going through this madness and you're going through this struggle and you're going through this poverty, and the music help glorify it and help you cope with it and help you deal with it. But in reality, it doesn't. The music actually gets you to accept this lifestyle that you're born into, hence furthering you from the opportunity to expand outside that box that you belong in. And I equate it to this. Imagine a lion being captive raised in a cage in a zoo. Correct? And I hate to relate it to this, but this is kind of the simplistic way of visualizing it. Imagine a lion being captive bred in a zoo, so you're constantly feeding him this meat, you're constantly feeding him water, you're constantly showering him and giving him baths, and all of a sudden this lion turns into a full-grown lion. And you take this lion and place him in the jungle, in the zoo, or not in jungle, I'm sorry, in the wilderness, where he has to hunt down wildebeest and gazelles. This lion have not had practice all its life, and you expect that lion to actually survive out there in the wild? It's the same concept. We keep our kids confined in this box, in this urban reality that they're facing, and they've adopted it and accepted it as their life. and can't think past the box that they live in. Until we take our kids out and expose them to college and expose them to the college classroom and the expectations at an early age so that they can feel comfortable going into those settings and actually have something to work towards and believe that they can attain back in the classroom in a school setting, our kids are going to continue to think that that box is all they have. We have to get their minds expanded to something more and something beyond what they see every day.
Your new book is entitled Reflections of a Self-Fulfilling Prophecy. Talk about self-fulfilling prophecy in the context of your life.
I had a self-fulfilling prophecy at a young age. I believed that I wasn't going to make it past this whole life. I was born in South Central Los Angeles, parents who were addicted to drugs, sleeping in parks when I was 12 years old, homeless, begging for money, asking people to pump their gas just so I could put food in my stomach. My self-fulfilling prophecy was that I wasn't going to get past this day-to-day getting by life. I gave up on my life at a young age. But as I turned through the obstacles and trials and tribulations of my life began to, my thought process began to take a change based on some of the experiences that I've had. And then I started to believe that myself, I was the only one who controlled my destiny. I was the only one. If I hated this system and this society that I loathed and hated so much, and this poverty lifestyle mentality that I hated so much, why was I doing everything in my power to stay in a system that was created for me to fail? And so I took it upon myself with mentors along the way who exposed me to something different, who showed me how corporate America worked, who showed me the realities outside of the box that I lived in. And from that, my dreams grew, my belief in myself grew, and my self-fulfilling prophecy changed. I then believed that I can make something of myself and go above and beyond this glass ceiling that was set forth in front of me.
So you basically determined your greatness. How do you then talk to students today about determining their own greatness?
Talking to students today and determining their greatness is getting our students to realize they're their own individual standard. If our students don't realize that they're their own individual standard, and what I mean by that, we try to fit inside a standard that was created for us to buy into. That's why you see a lot of our kids running around with their pants sagging, talking with a certain vernacular, not being very articulate, because they're trained and they're trying to fit into a standard that was created for them. Until our kids understand that they're their own individual standard, they'll never gain their own identity. That's what bullying comes in at, because our kids are trying to fit into the system, and anything that's different from the system and the standard that was created for them, they seem abnormal. But to empower our kids and let our kids know that we need to celebrate their own individual standard and respect each person's individual standard, you'll always have this concept of bullying, because bullying, kids who bully and humans who bully capitalize on other people's weaknesses, and that weaknesses often stems from self-esteem. And if our kids begin to build their self-esteem because they now respect and understand and embrace their own individual greatness, the bullying will tend to diminish and go away, because they have no one actually capitalizing on the weakness that exists with them, because the weakness is beginning to evaporate. It's beginning to disseminate, because our kids are now embracing their individual greatness. And until we start to tap into that individual greatness, it will always exist. Bullying to me and to most people who understand bullying is nothing more than someone else trying to cover up their insecurities by capitalizing on another person's weakness.
Discuss the state of education today.
There are a bunch of educational reforms that are taking place. A bunch of new after-school programs, new in-school programs, focusing on testing and bringing our testing scores up, X, Y, and Z. Very few people are focusing on the life skills that exist, that need to exist into our school system, where our kids can critically think about their life and where their life is going. With our kids critically thinking about the education that they're learning in their classroom and how it applies to their life and how it is going to apply to their life in the future. Kids who don't know what a checkbook is, who don't know what a college setting look like, who don't know what corporate America or NASDAQ or the Dow or the New York Stock Exchange, who have no concept of how mainstream society operates outside of their neighborhood. Our kids need to understand these certain things. They need to understand what self-esteem is all about. They need to understand how to goal set. Our kids don't understand the simple things like that. And so without our kids understanding how to goal set and how to properly plan for their life, they're going to continue to walk through life in this habit, in this cyclical manner, and our educational system will not change. It's one thing to try to educate our students in these four walls, but it's another thing to go against the grain and break tradition and take our kids outside of those school buildings so that they see something more. Because if tradition worked, in the state, if tradition worked and the consistencies of education worked, our educational system would not be in the state it's in today. We do not evolve as educators like our kids evolve and like society evolve. Do you think corporations are doing the same thing that they did 50 years ago that they're doing now? So why are we doing that in our educational system? We need to change that. If we truly care about the state of our kids and about saving our kids and changing the whole cycle that's going on in our urban schools today, we will start to really evaluate the thought process and the way the mindsets of our kids exist today, because I guarantee you it's totally different than in 1950 and 1865, so forth and so on. We are in the year 2010 going into 11, and we need to understand that change and embrace that change and work towards change for our kids.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson.
Thank you.